Hello. Today we're going to talk about voltmeter and ammeter. Okay, so this one is to measure voltage, and this one is to measure current. Okay, we also using a symbol like this in the circuit to denote it, and this one here will be like that. Okay, so what's the idea behind measuring a voltmeter and ammeter, right? Let's talk about ammeter first. So ammeter first. If I have a circuit like that, and I have a resistor. And let's say if I want to measure the current that's going in this loop right now. So how do I connect this ammeter to this circuit? Should I go in parallel or should I go in series? So the answer is we need to go in series. And so A should be in series, right? In series to the loop that you are interested in measuring the current. Okay. Now, so not only that's required, but also you need to pay attention that the resistance of the ammeter need to be very small, or almost zero. Okay, almost zero. So why is that important? Because whenever you do measurement, you don't want to be intrusive, right? You don't want to be intrusive. Or you don't want to change, right? The system that you're trying to measure, the system that you, right, try to measure. Okay. So how do you do that, right? So if I put something like a wire here, which is this, right? This is then close to a wire. Then I have no impact to this existing system. Then this will indicate just the current, but I did not increase the resistance to this circuit. Okay, so that's important to know. All right, so let's go to voltmeter. Clear that. Change color a little bit so you can wake up. So voltmeter. So if I have a circuit, again, a battery, and now I have a resistance, right? Now let's say if I want to measure the voltage across this resistor. So you want to measure, so the goal, right? The goal is to measure V, right? Across the resistor. R, okay? So this is R, right? That's what I want to measure. So this is, it's called epsilon, right? Epsilon, it's also called EMF, right? Okay, so if I want to measure the voltage across, right? Do I put in series or do I put in parallel? Okay, so the answer is I need to be in parallel, right? So the V need to be in parallel, okay? So this is what I would do. I put a V right here, okay? And just like that. So I want to measure this voltage across, right? From A to B. Basically, you're measuring, right? So this is higher potential, right? So be VA minus VB, right? Which is larger than zero, right? So you want to measure this. So what else do I need to have for this voltmeter? So how do I reduce the impact on the existing circuit, right? So what you need to do is the resistance of the voltmeter need to be close to infinity, right? So when it's close to infinity, basically like you almost like you cutting this, okay? So when you cut this, it basically, this doesn't even exist anymore. So that also means that if I have current, right, the total current coming this way. Now when I see this junction, right, so A is the junction, we call that a junction. The junction, you split the current. So we come over here, there's a current that going this way. Let's call that IV, right? And then you have current that's going this way. Let's call this one IR, right? So if this resistance of this voltmeter is very large, this IV will be close to 0. So then the current that going through this resistor will not change, right? So the current doesn't change, R doesn't change, the V shouldn't change, right? So that's the purpose, is not to impact the current that's going through this resistor so that it won't impact the voltage that you try to measure, okay? So again, today, in summary, we talk about 2 devices, right? 2 devices, okay? And these devices, sometimes we can go out and buy a multimeter. So multimeter can measure V, can measure ampere, right? So I should say current, right? Can measure R, resistance, right? And can measure conductivity. So whether something it's broken or not in the circuit, okay? So a multimeter, right? You can do this. So what we talk about today is that we have a device that can measure V, right? Voltage, it can measure current, right? So it's called ammeter. All right, so that's all we have today, and hopefully you get to learn a little bit more about physics.